Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
Welcome to episode 119 of Sports Card Nation. Happy to be back for another episode. Today's guest, none other than Nick Diunte. Nick hails from my neck of the woods, New York City. Very acclaimed writer for Forbes, baseball historian, loves the game, and really gets down to the brass tacks. I know he's done a lot too with the Negro League legends, and not just them, but just baseball in general, and does a great job. And probably should have had him on sooner than today, but better late than never, as they say. I want to talk about what he does and state of the hobby. Seems like anyone comes on now, we got to sort of do a state of the hobby, because the hobby's at a point now where it's sort of never been before. Like, we've had, great years, great time periods, but, what's going on now is, as crazy as it sounds, never probably seen before. And we also have a lot of new things in the hobby that, we didn't have in years past. Fractionals and these auctions breaking records seems like, if not every day, every week. And, it's just like what's going to happen next week. And Nick's been in the hobby a long time, like myself. And so we're going to kind of go reminisce back when, and also talk about current events as well. And great guy, does a great job in everything he does. Happy to have him on the show. So with that being said, let's not delay anymore, and let's get this thing going. Time for this week's incoming product releases. All right, some highly anticipated releases come out this week, but there's 8 in total, starting with today, show release day, March 19th, 2021. Topps Heritage Baseball will be based on the 71 set, I believe. I'm not a Heritage fan, so I open little to none of that, but that's for another topic. Tomorrow, on the March 20th, the first Upper Deck Golf is back with their Artifacts release. So Upper Deck Artifacts Golf, a lot of game used in that. 24th, 2021, Topps Sterling Baseball. I am a Sterling fan. I pick up a lot of singles along those lines. Also on the 24th, 2020 Panini Select Football. Same day, the 24th, 2020, 21 Panini Absolute Memorabilia Basketball. Also on the 24th, 2020, 21 Upper Deck SP Game Use Hockey. And on the 26th, 2021 Leaf Lumber Baseball. And also on the 26th, rounding out the week of releases, 2020, 21 Leaf Pearl Hockey.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoy the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
It's time for the Hobby What's Up, where we go around the hobby world and tell you all the latest news and breaking stories from the hobby we love.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up? What's up?
All right. Let's going to be heavy Topps news on the What's Up segment here. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, if you listened to the show, you remembered me talking about a Bowman Heritage box that I opened up. That I did well with what I got out of it, but there's supposed to be one autographed guaranteed per box, and I did not get an auto. The box overall was good, minus the auto, but Topps. I don't know if you may not know this. Topps has a customer service email, and so specially set up for when you don't get a promised hit. So I can't. I sent inquest, inquiry when I didn't get that autograph out of the Bowman Heritage box, and again, this is about 6 weeks ago, and sent it all. They requested the UPC code from the box, and I sent that all in, and with an explanation of what happened. And I wasn't sure what response, if any, I was going to get. We all know customer service this year is not great, quite frankly. And so, weeks went by and hadn't heard anything either way. No emails, nothing came in the mail. And so I thought, well, par for the course maybe. And, this week, I get a lot of Topps stuff between the online exclusives, game within the games, some of the art cards, some of the other printed demand stuff that I buy. So I'm always, there's very few weeks go by where I don't get a box or more than one box from Topps. So, but came home from work, went to the mailbox and saw a white sort of bubble mailer from Topps, which I don't get usually. That I usually get a box, or I get the manila bubble mailer. So had a kind of a different address on it, and then I kind of put two and two together and said, hey, this is the makeup for that Bowman Heritage box, not knowing what to expect. And opened it up. I don't want to. I know you're gonna hate me when I do this. I can't tell you what was in that bubble mailer, but very, very pleased with what they did. More than made up for probably any hit that I might have pulled that should have been in the box. And so no complaints. It was multiple cards, I'll say that much, and very, very pleased. And so, I know sometimes, not just me, but myself included, we pick on Topps and their customer service and customer service in general. But, kudos to Topps. They really more than made it right. And so I wanted to give credit where credit was due. While we're still on Topps, again, I said this is going to be a Topps heavy segment. They announced the Topps Chrome Platinum will be coming out August 28th. This is going to be a large set at 700 cards. There's going to be two box versions, if you will. They're going to have a standard hobby box, which will have 12 4-card packs and an auto in those boxes. And they're starting to do this thing called Light. And their Light version of this product is actually going to have more packs, 16 packs, but no auto. So if you don't mind not getting the auto, but you want more cards and you want to save a few dollars, you can opt for the light version. A lot of parallels in this. It would take an hour if I listed them all, so head to your favorite site that gives out product previews and check that out. It's Topps Chrome Platinum, comes out August 28th. Again, Topps opening a new office in Tokyo, Japan. They're going worldwide. Well, they always are worldwide, but they're having some home base operations in Tokyo, the first ever, as they expand their reach. And I think it's a great move by them. Topps is a baseball company. We know a lot of Japanese imports, player-wise, come from there, and I think it just expands their reach closer to, Japan's a big baseball country, so it makes sense. It probably should have did it sooner, but better late than never, as they say. Bowman Chrome Baseball is coming out in September. That's going to have, again, a light version to this as well. But let's talk about, there's 3 versions of it. And you got your hobby with the 2 mini boxes with 6 packs in each mini box and 5 cards per pack. That will also contain 2 autos in each of those, an auto in each of those 2 mini boxes for 2 autos total. The HTA that we're all familiar with, 1 pack with 3 autos. And again, here's that light version that Topps is implementing. The light version is going to have 10 packs with 5 cards per pack, no auto. So for someone that maybe doesn't like autos, or it isn't a deal breaker for them and wants to save a few bucks, it looks like you're going to have these light versions of most Topps product here. So again, heavy Topps. A lot of new releases coming, and they're implementing this light version of their products, which I kind of like. It gives you an option if you're a person that doesn't mind not having an auto. I kind of like the auto, but I think we all can agree, 8 out of 10 times the auto you get, usually nothing to write home about. Every scenario is different, but so if you're not missing the auto and you want to save a few bucks, it's a great option. So I wanted to announce too for our down south or those that attend the Dallas show. The Dallas show has sort of become the de facto national until we get the national at the end of July in Chicago. I'm going to make the trip down to Dallas May 20th. Just got to book my airfare. I'm going to stay with Brad Bethune, Texas car dude. Going to plan on coming in Friday and leaving Sunday and go to the show, 600 tables. Hang out with some people, Dr. Beckett, Uncle Rich Klein, Mike Monahan, Pat Geek, Jeff Hoffer, David Lee, who was just on the show a couple weeks ago, maybe see Eric Norton. So, a lot of folks in Texas that I'm friends with or communicate with, and never been to Texas, and looking forward to just hanging out, having a good time, attending the show, and then the national obviously in July. And speaking of the national in July, next week's guest will be Mr. Ray Schulte, the Director of Public Relations for the National. We're going to talk about all the rumors and innuendo about it moving, not taking place on the date. He was very, very candid. So if you're someone that goes to the National, next week's show is going to clear up a lot of misconceptions with that. And he represents Don Manley with a lot of great Don Manley content in next week's episode. Really pleasure talking to Ray, and a great guy. And I give him credit, and I told him this, very forthright, and didn't duck any questions, and was very honest about the situation, and that's all you can ask for. So next week, Mr. Ray Schulte. Let me tell you about Iron Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're your number one source for all your PSA submissions. They offer various service levels at the lowest prices around. They even provide the card savers your cards need to be submitted at no extra charge. Their elite status helps improve turnaround times, and their chat rooms keep you abreast of your subs and the status of your cards. What are you waiting for? Contact Rob on Facebook on Iron Sports Card Group. That's Iron Sports Card Group on Facebook. Or get a hold of Rob on Twitter at Iron Sports Cards. All one word, at Iron Sports Cards. They'll take care of you. All right, time for our in memoriam section of the show. We've missed a couple weeks with shows going longer. So we've got 3 folks from the sports world that we've lost that we have to acknowledge, going from oldest to most recent. March 4th, Mark Pavlich, famous for the 1980 Miracle on Ice, big assist in that game against Russia, which clinched the gold medal. Played 11 years in the NHL. With my own favorite team, the Rangers, North Stars, and the San Jose Sharks. He scored. He's the only American hockey player to score 5 goals in a game. He did that as a Ranger against the Hartford Whalers. His career, his life after hockey has been a tumultuous one. Arrest, some physical violence, some substance abuse, and he died on the 4th at age 63 at a treatment center. Mark Pavlich. On the 8th, Red Sox, Cardinals, Expos, Phillies, Reds, pitcher Rio Cormier from Canada originally. Became a U.S. citizen in 2004. Played 16 seasons in the major leagues. Only 54 years old when he passed away from pancreatic cancer. Went 71 and 64 with a 4.03 ERA in the big leagues. Is in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, elected 2012. Riel Cormier was 54 years old. And last but not least, recently on the 13th, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, middleweight champion, 62 and 3 with 52 KOs in the Boxing Hall of Fame, highest KO rate in middleweight history. His real name is Marvelous Marvin Hagler. A lot of people don't know that. His obviously birth name is Marvin Hagler, but he changed his, he wanted to be called Marvelous Marvin Hagler as a boxer. And he actually got upset when some announcers wouldn't use the Marvelous moniker. So he legally added it to his name. So his legal name was Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He passed away on the 13th at age 66. There are some conflicting reports of cause of death. I'm not going to say what's been reported because it's speculation. It's out there on the internet if you want to kind of check for yourself, if you will. You'll understand what I'm talking about if you look it up. So, the great Hall of Fame boxer, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Commence interview sequence. Happy to be joined by my next guest on the One of One Card Shop guest line. He's a teacher. He's a contributing writer to Forbes. He's a baseball historian, a content creator with his own podcast, Baseball Happenings. He's a coach as well. I don't want to skip over that, being a former one myself. But happy to have him on the show. Nick Diunte, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
John, my pleasure being here. I love what you're doing with this show. So thanks a lot for having me, and I look forward to, speaking to you and your listeners tonight.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being on there. We do have something else in common besides being coaches in that vein. We're both city kids. I believe you're Queens. I'm,
Yep.
as you see with my hat here, I'm a Brooklyn kid. But, New York City, we're one big happy family, I like to say. And, how things, we'll start off with how things going in my hometown area there. I know, you are the epicenter during the pandemic. Numbers are starting to trend better, and as the vaccine, gets distributed. But just kind of how things going right now.
We're healing, right? I think that's the best way to say it, is that New York City's healing. And, it was a really interesting scene about a year ago here, being in Queens and near Elmhurst Hospital, and seeing the panic and the hospitals being overrun, and now, seeing things ease up a little bit. I'm still cautiously optimistic, because I've seen strange behavior, out there, and I've really tried to, be cautious myself. But, we're healing, and the fact that there's a vaccine and it happened so quickly, I think, is an amazing thing scientifically. And, now that it's here, we're not completely out of the woods, but there is some more light at the end of the tunnel, and I think it's giving people hope. And I just personally hope that people still stick with what they were doing, because that's what was able to kind of get us to this point. And, even though as people continue to be vaccinated, I still think hey, we still need to follow protocol, even though as badly as we wanted to, get back to normal. I try to think of a time like 9/11, if you were here in the city at that time, right? There was pre and post that. Well, we're kind of in the same thing. There was a normal before 9/11, and now stuff changed. And this is, 20 years later, right? A kind of a similar thing. That was then, and this is now. And I think we really need to be accepting of what it is now, so that, we could be here to see the finish line.
Yeah, I agree. And both, they're obviously completely different events, but similar in the fact that it affected everybody, especially with obviously a pandemic that's worldwide. But obviously the events of 9/11 affected everyone in this country, whether you lived in, Shanksburg, New York, or Washington. That affected all of us as citizens. And so this as well. We're getting, I think, slowly back to normal. Whatever, I think, like you said, it's going to be sort of a new normal, whatever that is. I know you're a sports fan. I'm a sports fan. I like to be at Citi Field watching my Mets, and especially now with some real ownership. But that's a show in itself. But, I'm hoping we get there sooner than normal. Baseball, I'm hearing they're talking about maybe as early as June being close to the full capacity again. And so, it'd be nice. I don't know if it's wishful thinking or what's gonna be the outcome, but like you said, at some point we one thing that the United States, we're a resilient group, and if we have to wear a mask, I'm not opposed to wearing a mask to watch. Especially I have Mets mask. I can definitely wear a Mets mask at Citi Field. And so if we have to make little sacrifices like that to maybe get to some of the things we enjoy again, and I can only speak for myself, but I'd be willing to do something like that.
It's small sacrifices, like you said, and I just hope collectively that everybody is willing to continue to do it as hard as it may seem. We know what the alternative is, and like I said, I want to see people continue to be here. And I think the best way that we can do that is take the necessary measures.
Let's talk about something a more upbeat side,
Sure.
Anyway. So I just did a thing where I'm a huge Jackie Robinson guy. Growing up as a Brooklyn kid, and my dad lived at Ebbets Field when he was a younger kid and younger young adult, and I got to learn, even though Jackie was gone, he actually passed away a month before I was born. I learned about him rather quickly. And he became someone I idolized, looked up to, not just for for his accolades on the field, but even what he meant as a human being off field. Probably even more so, Nick, as you well know. Probably known more for the person he was off the field, and so early on, I became a huge Jackie Robinson guy, and as I learned more about him, learning that he obviously got his baseball start in the Negro Leagues, then I started learning about said Negro Leagues and a lot of those players, many who did make their way eventually, albeit in most cases too late, should have happened sooner, and many didn't. And so I became a topic of interest to me. I don't want to say I'm a baseball historian, but I'm someone who believes like what we have now, we have to give credit to the past, how we got here. I don't know if that always happens enough. And so I really became sort of, learned about the Negro Leagues and all the players, even the ones that never made it to the major leagues. And so when the set came out with Greg Kreindler doing the art, I bought a couple sets, one to open up, one to keep closed. And then, I was going through it. And then, it was the 100th anniversary of the formation of the Negro Leagues. And I said, John, why don't you every day, highlight, go from card number 1 to card 184, do a little post each day and a little write-up and bio about that card, that player. I kind of did it to kind of for everyone else. But the funny thing was I learned myself as going through this about some of the guys I didn't know about, and it was a great it really turned out, quite frankly, if I can be so bold, just even better than I thought it was going to be. A lot of feedback, a lot of commentary, people retweeting, people comment, hey, I didn't know about that with this particular player, and I went and I looked more into them, and those are the kind of things that really, warmed my heart that, a simple tweet can get that ball rolling, and I know you with Saber and just the work you do, quite a bit yourself. Just sort of, your thoughts on it's the 101st year now, but we're just into 2021. Your thoughts on that and some of your background with your, you've gotten to interview some of those guys yourself, actually.
So I guess first off, a big shout out to Greg Kreindler, who's also in Brooklyn, and his work is tremendous. Yeah. And I'm so happy to see that collaboration happen because, like, Greg had previewed a little bit of the art, like, the year leading up to it. And to see it happen is really an excellent thing. And, what you were saying, right, there's so much information that the general public doesn't know about the Negro Leagues. We know of Josh Gibson. We know of Satchel Paige. We know of Jackie Robinson and, Larry Doby, right? And then, as you start to get past those folks have to be a little deeper in the game, even to know who Buck Leonard is or Judy Johnson, right? Or Ray Dandridge. These people are in the Hall of Fame, but, a lot of people heard the lore of Satchel Paige, the lore of Josh Gibson. But all those other players that are, in the set, and it's so wide and vast. Willie Wells, right? Like, there's great stories behind all of these players, and we need to be able to amplify them because that's what's going to continue to allow the legacy to preserve and get people curious. So if the set makes people curious, if your post makes people curious, then this is what we want to do with the history is get people to read. Okay, so who are these players? Oh, there's this great book, Only the Ball Was White, right? So, which is like a starting point that I give a lot of people. Or, Buck O'Neill's like, I Was Right on Time. Don Rogosin's Invisible Men, right? Read Larry Lester's work. Phil Dixon, John Holway, right? Tremendous research. James Riley, Negro League Encyclopedia, right? You can look up a lot of this stuff, and we're fortunate that people took the ball and ran with it, but they're also either dying or, they're slowing down their output because they're getting older. So now we kind of have to pick that up so that the story can continue to be told, and it is on the basis of their really groundbreaking research. So how I got involved was in the mid-'90s. I grew up, my uncle had went to games, and he's still alive, he's 87. Like, he had went to games at, the Polo Grounds, and, at Ebbets Field, and it told me, stories of seeing the Negro Leagues play at the Polo Grounds with my grandfather, right? They would go up there and watch. And so I always heard those names growing up, and he would tell me, I saw this one or that one. But then when Ken Burns' baseball came out and Buck O'Neil spoke so eloquently about the league, and he said, there were more than just Josh and Satchel. And I started hearing names. That's when I started getting all the books. And that happened to coincide with the memorabilia boom at that time. So we're talking 1994. And so that's when Ron Lewis put out his sets. Geez, I have one right here. So so something like this, right? So yep. Ron Lewis did this Negro League Legends set, which I think was tremendous. I was lucky enough to be kind of early on the internet, and I found a list of addresses for those players. So what did I do? I started writing to them. This was 94, 95. You throw in a $3, $5 donation. I was shoveling snow. We had the bad snow at that time. So I had some cash. So I think it was the timing was very good. I went to 2 of the reunions. I got to meet players. They gave me a phone number. They gave me an address. I spoke to a few of them on the phone. Here I'm in high school, talking to them on the phone. I have some really crummy recordings of 1 or 2 that I try to do off of a speakerphone that I have on tape somewhere, but the quality is really poor. But that sparked my interest in just the correspondence. I'd get these 1-page letters back with them. And I wasn't writing to that. It was cool to get it, as opposed to you see now, some people want it so they can show off. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. This player wrote me a letter and told me a little more about the league, or just wrote how nice it is to be remembered. Right. Because their careers went dormant for so long. And then all of a sudden, when they're in the mid 70s, people come to these autograph shows. People are coming to their homes. People are sending them mail. And, finally they're getting some of the due that they should have had 50 years prior to time. So that's what sparked my interest. And I just became a big reader, and I was playing a lot of baseball at the time too. So all those worlds collided. And I feel fortunate to, have really been in that time of access, availability, and honestly being on the internet somewhat early too.
Yeah. And, you're talking about a time period, obviously, we didn't have social media back then and the technologies we have now. And so, us that are in the time, we need to, continue those stories and get that word so we don't forget the past. Something you said reminded me of something me and my dad did. I think it was about 88, 89. I was 16, 17. And my dad's like, man, I had a lot of those guys' autographs from when I went to the games, but I don't have them no more. And I like to write them letters, kind of tell them what they meant to me as a young man, and ask, send a self-addressed stamped envelope and ask, and an index card, and ask, hey, I had your autograph, but I'd love to get it again. I'm not selling it or anything like that. It's for me. And so me and my dad did that. We wrote kind of combined. We wrote letters, and my dad said what they meant to him, getting to watch them play, and I just kind of came at it from, my dad really appreciates, what you meant to him, and I got the fortunate to hear these stories and kind of share that bond with him, and like you said, not only did they send the index cards back, but many, I still have them. It's in a binder over there, Nick. Many of them wrote 1 or 2 page letters saying, thanks for remembering an old player. I didn't think anybody even was thinking about me or remembered me. It made, many of them said it made their day. And they sent even extra things. And, it's fun, like I said, many of them were shocked that people even knew them to reach out to them and on that level. And, it was a nice thing because it seemed to make their day. And obviously, we got a couple index cards and autographs, and my dad, kind of went back and could reminisce about a great time in his life. And, it was he has a book, I have a book, and, the letters, and it just, so when we're hearing you say that, I thought right back to that time period for me and my dad doing that with Brooklyn Dodgers.
It really was a wonderful time,
Yeah.
for collecting. I think it's different now because the internet has given everyone so much access that, sometimes I question, like, right, collecting is always a fine line between, like, collecting and then, like, being overboard with it. And I think some people are going overboard with it, which is why, like, you're seeing a lot of people who are, like, good signers now either pick up agencies or stop signing because people are, they're going to the well too many times.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, and again, we're talking about that time period. You're talking Topps had reprinted the 53 top set and the 54 top set. So I was sending all those out. And again, those guys were a little younger back then. And there's a few still alive now, right? There's probably about 10 or 20 still alive. But, like, you would get really awesome correspondence from them and you weren't, I don't know, it was just like you wrote like a legit letter of, like, I looked up your career, I saw this was interesting. And maybe they told you a story or they wrote you a note back. Thanks for, like you said, thanks for writing. And, who are the remnants of it? That's like your Carl Erskine's right now. Like, and I've written Erskine a few times when I've had questions about, like, stuff I'm researching. And he'd write me a paragraph back like, this is what happened with Jackie here. Or this is what happened when I played in Cuba. Right. And it was helpful for something that I was working on. But imagine, like, that level for almost everything that was coming back. It was a very, very golden time for that. And I can imagine the people, like, you said you got in late 80s. That was even before it was even more crowded. You know what I mean? Like, it was, you could get Hall of Famers in the mail easy.
Yeah, Tom Lasorda wrote back. Duke Schneider wrote back. Pee Wee Reese. I'm trying to think, just, and then other guys that I might know, you might know, maybe someone else might not. Your George Shotgun Shubas and some of those lower tiered players, if you will. I don't even like saying it like that, but you know what I mean. Not as famously known as other ones.
They've been there and did that, but just not as loud.
Yeah. And a lot of them, I remember this too now, some of them continued to write, like, letters, almost like and we exchanged letters back, and they talk. I have letters that they're talking about their families and thanks for remembering, they're thanking us for remembering an old guy. I didn't think anyone would. And it made our day better because we knew it had affected them in a positive. And they talked about, like you said, they talked about some stories, because I think in my letter I wrote that, Jackie Robinson was my favorite player. So some of them in their letters back would have an anecdote about Jackie. Hey, John, just so that sort of thing. And, I remember one of them said, everything, all the nice things you hear about him, someone who knows him, knew him, played with him, they're 100% true. Nothing's embellished, maybe even more so than they even report sometimes. And, as a 16, 17-year-old kid and hearing that and learning that, just all the more added to the legend of Jackie the man, even more so than the player. And it was great for all of us, that the players, were happy to sort of, one even I remember he wrote, he said, man, I hadn't even thought about baseball until I got your letter. And now it's sparking, my things that I almost forgot, but now I'm bringing them back. And thanks for doing that. And it was sort of cathartic, and I'm going to step aside for a quick break to hear a word from one of our great sponsors, Pastime Marketplace. They make the best card cases in the game. Pastime Marketplace offers a line of durable graded card cases made for collectors who want high-quality graded card storage that is virtually indestructible. Their cases are waterproof, dustproof, airtight, and designed to protect your valuable collection. Check them all out at www.pastimemarketplace.com. Protect your best with the best. And remember to save 10% off your total order. Use the promo code SCN10. That's capital S, capital C, capital N, 10 for 10% off your total order at pastimemarketplace.com. Sports Card Nation is back with Nick Diunte. Now, like you said, it's different. Like my dad will tell you, going to Ebbets Field, the players got out of the cars and they literally went up to everyone, shook hands. Some like he said, not every kid he wanted an autograph. Some of them just wanted, I want to shake my hand of the hero, my hero, and they'd shake hands. They would sign, and now, as we know, it's a different sort of thing. Sometimes players go in side doors or they run in. They don't really want to interact, and I understand it too. I don't want to paint them with a bad brush. It's a different. People are, instead of just wanting one autograph, I want 10. They're on eBay, 30 seconds after they get it, and the players notice. I understand, but it's different. It's kind of a different age of sports. I was going to say baseball, but I was probably better to say sports.
I've been on both sides of the coin, right? Actually, multiple sides. So I've been there as a collector. I've been there as media. I've been there as like a player representative, right? There's one or two players that I've helped out with stuff over the years. And being on like all those sides, so you see how you act as a collector, and you try to really have like, or at least actually you try to have good manners, right? You try to like be patient. You don't try to put out a whole ton of stuff. Once in a while, guys say, hey, what do you got? I'll sign whatever you have. Okay, I got a few cards here just in case, right? But then on the other side, like I've been on the media side, and then so obviously you can't do that as a person in the media.
Yes.
And watching and talking to players, sometimes you're just tired, and it's not tired of signing autographs. Like maybe they're late to the ballpark. You don't know like what happened coming in. Maybe they don't want to, wait 10 minutes outside to get everybody, and they feel like if I can't get everybody, I don't want to get at. I don't want to disappoint people. Others just are like in game mode, and they're just like, hey, look, I just not today. Like I want to go out and play. It's a big game, whatever it is. So you have to understand the mindset of an athlete is not necessarily thinking about signatures, even though you might be waiting there thinking like, I really want to meet player X and have him sign my whatever. They're thinking about like, I need to get ready for this game. I want to get in. My ankle's been bothering me. I need treatment. I need to eat. These are things that we don't take into account. Then the players I've represented have been a little older. Some, like you said, are tickled to death, and this is what makes their day go because they might be widowed, they might be single at this point, and people don't ask them about it. And when they do, it unlocks a door, and they want to talk because that might be the only person that asks them about it for months until another letter or maybe a random phone call. Or I've interviewed guys like they're like, no one's asked me about this in 50 years. And they just start rattling off for an hour, and they're like, call anytime because, you realize when people get older, everyone around you starts disappearing. And so because it gives them a feeling of meaning and that they were somebody because at some point they were. And realize that when you're interacting with a professional athlete, there were at that point, no matter how large or small their career, where all of us as young kids, high school or college athletes wanted to be, they got there. Give them that respect and the accolades that they got for getting there. And, but a lot of them, like, that makes them feel important again because when you're in your 70s or 80s or potentially even 90s and you're looking around and you're like, my kids don't really talk too much, or they don't come around, or maybe they didn't have kids. Sometimes the game is all they got and what keeps them up in the morning. And like I said, so if they catch those few fans, they might write or they might call and be like, hey, I just need somebody to talk to. And I think we don't always put that in perspective, with the athletes that are doing. So there's different reasons. It's bigger than autographs. And, hey, it's lovely when a player signs. The economics are a little bit different, of it now. And maybe it is a little less genuine that, people were waiting around with autographed books or maybe a single card and not like, a stack of cards and there's a whole system going on. And, some people do this for pay. I'll never knock the hustle, right? Because everyone's got their own thing and their own reasons why. But you understand that people are not signing because of a whole bunch of things. And tell you the truth, they don't owe it to us. They owe it to us to get on the field and play. Anything past that's a bonus. And I think a lot of like collectors fans lose sight of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, Nick, too, people forget that they might be, world-class athletes and major league athletes, but they're also human beings. They have families. They have things going on in their life, issues. Not everything is always roses and daisies. They might have stuff on their mind. Like you say, they might have an injury that they need attended to and all sorts of things. And, I think some people forget that that's a person too. Now, they might be one heck of a ball player or an athlete, but they also, they do that for so many hours a day. And then they're just like we are with all sorts of different things in life. And we can't lose sight of that. Some do, some don't, but, I think the ones that do sort of make it bad for the ones that, or the ones that don't realize that make it bad for the ones that do, because it rubs them the wrong way or gives them a bad taste in their mouth, across the board. But it is what it is, right? What do you just do, you do the best you can. And, so going, getting back to the hobby, I know kids, as a coach, as a teacher, for me as a coach, but I've been in the hobby almost 40 years. I started as a 7-year-old kid. And so that's sort of an important thing to me. Some will argue that the hobby of where we're at now is not really geared to kids, and it'd be hard to argue that, but there are kids in the hobby. That's a good thing. But I think it's, being a kid, if I was a 7-year-old in today's era, it would be more difficult for me to be in the hobby than it was in 1979. That's just a fact, of the matter. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. And so I'm glad I sort of, is being old, sometimes I say, man, I wish I was, 24 again. But at the same time, I'm glad I started in the hobby when I did. It was more pure. We didn't have, there were shows and all that and values, but not to what we're seeing today. And I just, kind of your thoughts. I think we're losing some of the kids. There's many times I'm in Walmart, let's say, not even going there per se for cards, but you go to the aisle, right? And then, I told the story on my show. One time I saw two young boys coming in. They still had their Little League uniforms on. They still had their cleats on. And they're running up, and, someone who cares like that, I'm like, oh, you're going to check out the baseball cards, and went right to like the Yu-Gi-Oh! And did not even give a look to the baseball cards. And my heart kind of sunk. I really hit me. I'm like, man, like they didn't even give the time of day to the baseball card section. They grabbed a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever it was, Pokemon, and ran back to wherever their parents were. And I'm like, that really made me feel terrible. I know I don't even know them, but I know that, I played baseball. I still play competitive softball. I would cards were a huge thing. And that really hit me, like maybe it's not like what it was to me at that age. It's not the same anymore. And I'm sure there are kids that play Little League that collect baseball cards. I don't want to just use two young men as an example. All kids don't care about cards. But even in that moment, I don't think it's the same maybe as when you or me were younger, and we're losing a little bit of that aspect. And, I hate to see that, because I think it's important as we age and age out, and, life is what it is. We're not going to be here forever. And we need those folks behind us to kind of take the baton, as I always say. And, your thoughts as a coach, as a teacher, as a collector, as someone who has their finger on the pulse, as I always like to say, what do you take from that, or what are your thoughts on that aspect?
Well, without getting too like reminiscent, I want to second your notion. Cards were everywhere growing up, right?
Yeah.
Literally, you could fall down and find a pack of Tops somewhere. So whether it was a candy store, whether it was a department store, cards really were in every store, literally. Drugstores, CVS, Walgreens. Like I said, here in New York City, you would go to the bodegas and you can get a pack of cards. Like everyone had them. So they were very easy to access. There were baseball card stores, multiple ones in each borough, right? There was not hard finding sports cards. Fast forward now to 2021, what does a small child do? There are a limited amount of hobby shops. The cards are very expensive price. You can't go in and buy a 50-cent pack anymore, or 35 cents, or whatever they were when folks were growing up. And so, you mentioned like Target or Walmart. I mean, it's really ridiculous right now what is going on. I go back to earlier on about like adults being semi-addicted, and then there's the whole profit margin thing, which is going on. And so for a kid that's like, yeah, I want a pack of cards because the new Topps dropped and I want to see what they look like, or maybe I can get a Tatis or a Soto or Trout or, insert current hot player. You can't. And so where people turn their attention, now they're watching like breakers because maybe like, I want that card, mommy or daddy. But the whole excitement of like opening a pack is not there, and maybe that cuts down on a little of the waste, but it's the accessibility issue, which is difficult. And I don't know who to blame. Like, do you blame Topps for not making enough supply? Because Topps is probably printing a lot, but the cards are getting eaten up by like the breakers and the big card shops and the big online distributors who are buying up all these cards. So, when you take away accessibility, expect people to go away with it. And that's from sport too, right? You look at baseball. What has baseball done? It's made itself less accessible, and it's not an MLB problem. Because travel ball has proliferated so much that it's too expensive, inaccessible, kids stop playing. They go to other sports where there's a lower barrier entry. You're talking about basketball, soccer. But I mean, travel soccer is expensive, but it's inexpensive to play pickup soccer. It's hard to get 18 kids together to play a pickup game of baseball, or even if you do it, 6-on-6 or half field or whatever it is. You can't really get kids out there to go and play the game. And so when parents have to think about, okay, what am I spending my money on? And Little League now is exceeding $200. But now someone's like, well, you're 10 years old. It's time to step up in competition because you want to play at the next level, right? Which whatever that means at 10, right? Knowing that, people grow or stop growing, right? They hit puberty at all different kind of rates. I'm like, yeah, well, you want to play in this local travel team because, you can catch and hit a little bit. Now it's $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. A lot of parents have to think twice about paying a few $100s a month just to play baseball. It's like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to play year round, so you probably not going to be able to play, rec basketball or rec hockey or football or soccer or whatever it is because we expect to be playing 10 months out of the year because we've now made an investment, like a significant financial investment in playing. And so baseball in general has an accessibility problem. And the collecting side and playing is connected. Like your story, I was expecting you to say they went to the rack and picked up the cards. You're like, hey, I bought them each a pack because
I would have.
Right?
Honestly, Nick, I would have. Like if you know what I mean. If their parents said, put it back, I'd be like, here,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have like brought them to the register. I probably would have just given them the money and say, hey, that's on me,
Yeah,
and,
sure, because you want kids to get involved, and like the culture of baseball was playing and collecting. At some point, those got separated, right? And hey, look, taste change. Maybe people don't want as much stuff in their house. I get it, but when those things start to diverge and you take away accessibility, you're going to lose people for the reason I stated. They're getting priced out, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I'd like to see, it's tough to put the horse back in the barn once it's out. It's going to be an uphill battle. I don't know if it's a hill, Topps or Panini or other companies want to fight, but they're not hurting financially as far as
they have to go in the schools.
Sales. Yeah,
they have to go. It's the same thing with baseball. Like I think if MLB wants younger players to take away barriers, they need to go into the PE classes. And I'm not biased because I'm a phys ed teacher. Like you need to go to those elementary PE schools and teach the kids a game, or have people come in and do after school programs. And you know what? The companies need to send big boxes of those little like plastic 4-packs of cards and give them out. Like you want to hook people, give them the free stuff, and then maybe someone will be curious enough to actually go and pay for it. And they have enough to do it. Like, we don't have to give out significant cards, but Topps has because I've gotten them at events where they have these little promo, almost like what you would get in the cereal boxes with 3 or 4
Well,
cards.
they do the National Baseball Card Day.
Yes.
I think that helps, but it, like you said, I think they can do more. I think they probably fall short a little bit if we may be so bold, I'll say it for you. There's room for improvement in that category. All your points were dead on. I was nodding as you were talking because they're all true. I mean, and you're coming at it from someone who's involved in the hobby, someone who's a coach, and so you know what you're talking about. Going to step aside for a minute to talk with one of our great sponsors, Hotbox Cards, and they're going to tell you, or I'm going to tell you about their special going on here in April. Hey folks, tired of going to the retail store and finding the wax shelves cleaned out bare? I've got the answer for you, and that answer is Hotbox Cards. They offer a monthly subscription service at a great price level. What's better than getting a box of sports cards on your doorstep every month? Not a whole lot, and these boxes don't cost a whole lot. Let me tell you what's in each and every hot box. 3 Relic auto cards, 3 unopened hobby packs, 50 bonus cards featuring stars, rookies, semi-stars, inserts, and parallels. And 1 in every 5 boxes has a red-hot envelope with a surprise card. They also honor expired redemptions with a comparable item. So there's no worry about getting that old redemption card with nothing to show for it. Check them out at www.hotboxcards.net and put in promo code SCNation. SCNation all in caps to get a 4th free hit instead of the usual 3. In April, they are celebrating opening day by giving away a 2020 Topps 582 Montgomery Club Gavin Lux rookie auto. And the other thing too, Nick, that to stick up, kind of take it off the card company shoulders is there's just so many things pulling these kids in all different directions between social media and stuff that we didn't have at that age. It was. I always tell the joke, I always knew where my buddies were, where all the bikes were and what front lawn or what in front of what stoop, everyone was. That's how we didn't have cell phones yet or text, like where you at. We just saw all the bikes and knew that's where everyone was. And we went over, we went in there. But now it's just with modern technology and social media and cell phones and smartphones, it's just so many things, drawing their attention. And I think there's just less, I think there's less. I know people will argue that there's more. I don't believe so. Even attending the national, the kids, I hate to say it like this, but some of the kids I saw were, ripping packs open and taking the hit that they got out of the pack, and the rest of the cards they were just either leaving there or they were in the garbage cans. And
that's boggling me. Like, when you were talking about this, cards are a very analog thing. You have to touch them, hold them. You read the backs, you read the fronts. I just went through Topps Series 1. And, I'm looking at some guys' cards, and, there's the small print on the back. What do I mean by that? They played 10, 15 years. You're like, wow, I didn't realize that guy's been playing since, 08, 09, 2010. And, in the majors. And it's like, well, I had to, squint a little bit to look at the back of the card to see, all the teams they played for, see now that they've accumulated stats. And I think that was part of it, too. I'm not going to romanticize, I knew the stats of everybody. But it was kind of cool to see, some quirky things, or why did a guy have 500 at-bats one season and then 36 the next, right? Did he get hurt? Did he get farmed out? I think that stuff was interesting, but cards are meant to be savored a little bit, and that optic of kids just going through them really quickly and then tossing them, it's like, wait, hold on. There's a lot more in there. Go back and look at it again.
Yep. Nope. I feel the same way. And so I love to see that come back. I don't know if we ever will, or at least not the way it used to be. Little old man on the porch moment there, maybe for me. But I will. I'm guilty of it. I do romanticize the past a little bit, or kind of think how I grew up, and it's just a different age, a different era, and it is what it is. But anything I give cards away. I try to promote. Like you mentioned. I mean, it's easy for me to say it now, but had those two young men in the store I told said, "Oh man, I wish I could get this pack, but Dad won't give." I would have probably given them each $5 each and said, "Here, it's on me. Enjoy, guys." And but they didn't. They went right to the non-sports, grabbed something, ran back, and that was there was no opportunity for me to do that, even if I wanted to. So what are you going to do, right? But hopefully, the hobby's going to be around a long time. Maybe we see some movement in those areas, and I think if I'm in a company, Topps, Panini, what have you, I know it'll be something I would at least look at, and because that's going to be the future, at least in my mind, of the hobby. We need those young people who will carry the hobby forward.
Yes.
But speaking of the hobby forward, as you very well know, right now, probably the last 2 years, just probably the biggest 2 years in the hobby. Stuff's just an inferno. It bounces from one thing to the next. We've seen vintage go up. We've seen graded, different sports. We've seen the rise of the second-year cards. Wax even on the retail levels just cleared out. You're lucky now if you find any kind of sports products at Walmart or Target anymore. And the hobby is booming. We got fractional shares. We got NFTs. Blockchain, and we don't even have physical items. They're selling out too, and they're not even real items. I mean, it's just the hobby. It's just anything is Midas touch. It's turned into gold. Your kind of thought, and to think that's happening too, Nick, during a pandemic. It's sort of all the ingredients for this to happen, though, were there. We had some stimulus package, some unemployment bonuses, people having downtime, working from home. Listen, work from home. People do it at work. You're gonna have that eBay tab open, right? You're gonna have that card selling platform tab open, and so all these sort of ingredients came together. And I was on this show in March when the pandemic was really first hit, and my 30 years experience, I thought cards are going to probably take a back burner. This is life. People are going to be worried about paying their mortgage, putting gas in their car, food in the fridge and on the table. Like cards are going to take a back seat, and rightfully so. And obviously, I was wrong. We've seen the opposite effect happen in the hobby. It's it's good for the hobby. I guess I don't always, being right is nice, but even when I said it, I said I'm hoping I'm wrong, but this is how I kind of see it. I was wrong, and I want to be respectful to people who've this is a pandemic. People have lost loved ones and friends and family. I'm only speaking on the hobby side of things. I mean, the hobby's just at an all-time high. Your kind of thoughts on what you're seeing and what's going on.
I've written about this from my column with Forbes last year when it all went down, and it was interesting to see because I thought the same thing as you. I figured, people are going to be struggling, and the last thing they're thinking about is extras. Then as this went along, right, it's not like everyone lost their jobs, but now people are bored and they can't get product and they can't go out. So where are you going to turn to? Well, you can turn to online and see that. And, people aren't traveling. So the money they would normally spend on a vacation. Oh, now home, I went and dug up my old baseball card collection. Oh, this is fun. Let me see what it's about. And people started getting curious, and they would maybe get on some breaks or buy some cards off of Twitter or eBay, or they would go and say, look, I can't pay the big money, but I'm going to buy that box of 88 Fleer because that was a fun set for me. And you start seeing prices like slowly creep up. So people had money that they wanted to spend and not really places to spend it. And then the speculation happened, right? And so I think we've been in a great era of the last year of super speculation. And I've said this countless times. And even when I talked to Gary Vaynerchuk, right? We said, someone's going to be left holding the bag. He said, absolutely, right? So as much as people like not Gary V, Gary V and I had like a 20-minute talk about this, and Gary was candid as ever. And he said, like, yes, 95% of these players, people are going to left holding the bag. And I see it all the time, and I talk about it almost daily on Twitter when I see stuff happen. Like, you know, this stuff just keeps getting passed, and all people are doing is speculating, right? And this is why the grading crazes come in, because people saw money go up and they wanted the quick money, right? And so now the grading companies are overwhelmed. So now they're like, oh, they just raised their price? Of course. The demand is insane. Why wouldn't you raise your price? You know, like, you're the gold standard. You're going to raise your price because you're overwhelmed and, you know, you need more staff. So we've seen a lot of speculation, and you've been in this longer than I have, but having lived through a few cycles of this, history is no different. This is going to overheat. People are going to realize that they're left with stuff that's maybe not worth what they think it is, or they bought at the height, and then something's going to happen. They're going to need the money, or their attention is going to move on once we can start traveling or doing other things or going to games. And people may get bored with the whole flipping aspect of it. And I'm going to say, look, I took advantage of some of it. I didn't really take any bets on anything, but I cleared out a lot of inventory. I flipped stuff I saw at garage sales, and not for like ridiculous prices, but, you know, you buy some at 5, sell it for 15. Okay, fine. If someone wants that, like, I'll do that. That helped replace all my coaching income. Like, I lost a ton of money not coaching because we get paid pretty well to coach here in New York City. And I lost a significant amount of money not coaching, and I needed a way to recover it. But I wasn't out there like flipping, you know, retail boxes. It was just like, you know, stuff you find, or like, wait, someone wants to pay for like those cards that are sitting behind me. Well, they've been sitting behind me in a binder for the last 15 years. Let me put that money to work somewhere else. So that's how I looked at it. And a lot of other people did. And they were like, cool, fine. Like, I want this. I want something to do, and it's low cost entertainment. So, you know, a lot of people speculating, but also just a lot of people with money and time on their hands. And, you know, I do know at some point it's going to go down.
And here's the other thing, Nick. I don't think you have to apologize for that. You know, this is a free enterprise. This is America. Last time I checked, you know, and in these cases, the market, the buyers are setting the prices. You're not putting a gun to anyone's head and say you're giving me this for this. They're that's what they're willing to pay. That's what the market is willing to pay. You know, that's another. I don't really want to go off on that tangent, other than just kind of broaches. You know, another thing we're seeing too is those that do sell some stuff. I sell. I did my first show with a tax number, all legit. At 15, I had a card store for 6 years in the early 90s, and now I still do online stuff. And there's a faction of the hobby that like will give you a guilt trip if you like sell anything or you're bad, you know, or you're doing so.
Someone had to sell it to us. Like, we had to buy it from somewhere, right? So it's like it's all circular.
I'm going to step aside for 1 second to hear from another great one of our sponsors, the Sports Card Shop at Moco, the Gotcha family in Michigan, providing great sports card hobby service to all their customers there. We'll be right back.
The Sports Card Shop at Moco is your small-town local shop with a global reach. Conveniently located in New Buffalo, Michigan. We're an easy drive for most residents in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio. Come see us every Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 5 and Sundays from 12 to 5. Want to shop from the comfort of your home? Give us a call at 269-469-0140 or visit our website at thesportscardshop@moco.com or our Facebook page. Major credit cards and PayPal accepted, and we ship anywhere in the world. We're an authorized dealer for both Panini and Topps, with new sealed wax from both arriving weekly. And yes, we have PSA and SGC graded cards and over 250,000 singles in stock. Be sure to follow us and turn on notifications for posts to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on new arrivals. The Gocher family has been serving this community for over a decade, so stop by or visit us at thesportscardshop@moco.com.
We are back with Nick Diunte.
Something else came across my head real quick that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me here, right? One of my colleagues wanted me to help him sell his collection. This was before the pandemic. So I had sold some of it off, and I had here, I think, 1984 Dunrich Champions. They were like oversized cards.
Yeah.
And he had loose packs, and I had them sitting in a box in my closet, and I couldn't really like sell them. I didn't know what to do with them, so I just held on to them a little bit. And when the pandemic hit, I put like a picture of them laid out on Twitter. In a day, I sold like, I don't know, I might have had 100, 200 packs. They were like 4-card packs. I think in like 2 days, I sold all of them. And I said, oh, wow, people want something to open. And it wasn't even big money. I might have sold for like 50 cents or $1 a pack, right? I wanted to clear them out and get my buddy his money, right? And I said, wow, people were like, yeah, man, it's something to do. And literally, they sold in like 2 days. I sold the whole stock. People were DMing me like, "You have any more left?" I'm like, "No." And so that I said, no one wanted them when I put them on eBay like 6 months prior. You know?
Yeah.
So that was my light bulb moment of like, people want cards.
Yeah,
that might have been like April, May.
Yeah. No doubt. And I mean, like I said, anything. There's stuff. We see cards that were iconic cards when we collected when we were younger. The bow from the 90 score and the SP1 Jordan out of 91 Upper Deck. I actually just pulled one myself. I found a couple loose packs in a box, and one was in one of those packs. But those cards were like in $1, $2 clearance boxes. And then what you said, what's happening is this downtime. We can't go to sporting events. We can't go out to eat. We can't go to the movies, and so there's that money that we would normally be spending under normal circumstances. Now it's burning a hole in someone's pocket, and they're like, "Hey, I remembered when I collected cards. Hey, I remember that Bo card. That was the coolest thing. He's shirtless with football pads and a bat behind. I want that card again. I remember I had like 2 of them." And so now that market is, that card that was in $2 in the clearance box or $1, it's now $15, $20, $25.
It doesn't make good financial sense to me, but I've learned that like you can't separate a fool from his money or something like that, like this old idiom of that. And hey, if someone wants to pay it and I have it, I'll take it, because I know there's a really small window that someone, like, what did we just see recently? 91 Tops Dom Zimmer, because someone mentioned on a podcast, and now people are paying $20. I said, wait, is this a joke, or is someone like trying to up this card because they have a bunch of them? And I'm like, do people fail to realize there's literally a few million in this card? Like around, like people have, boxes upon boxes of 91 Tops. And he said, wow, someone really wanted to pay $20 for it. I had none of them. I would have sold it because that card's sitting in a box for a penny. I'll take the 20 spot because maybe I'll put it on groceries next week.
Yeah. And again, that's what someone's willing to pay. You're not forcing them. You're not doing anything illegal. That's you could say manipulated market if you want, but it's still the market. And, I don't think anyone has to apologize for that. Like you said, or like Gary Vee said, at some point, and I subscribe to this notion or theory, whatever you want to call it. The music's going to stop in some form. This can't continue to go up and to the right forever. And so, there's two factions, right? There's some that say there's going to be a crash. I don't subscribe to that. And then there's the other theory, the other notion, the one I do subscribe to, there's going to be a market correction. I think the hobby is too strong, Nick, for a crash. It has before, but I think that the hobby right now is at its strongest ever been. But like you said, the things, light bulbs are going to come on. We're going to get back to some normalcy where some of that disposable income is now being spent in venues that we used to, going out to eat, traveling, going to the movies, going to sporting events again. Tickets to those things are not cheap. So as someone who goes and knows. And so, I think some of that money we're seeing in the card market now, because it can't be spent in other areas. When those other areas open back up, some of that money is going to leave the hobby and go back to those areas. And I think that's when, I get that question all the time in DMs and PMs, and maybe, what do you see happening? And again, who knows for sure?
Right. You can't. You know, we can't predict the future, because if we did, we would have stocked up on certain stuff and offloaded. But I think all people do is look at like old Beckett's, right? I think of players like Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, right?
Yeah.
MVPs, multiple MVPs. People throw out their cards, right? You look at some old Beckett's from the mid 2000s, and their cards were here, and now they're not. Everyone thinks that they're going to be holding the Trout rookie when in most cases the player's going to cool off. Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, the interest is just not as high, as it was. Even though these are really solid baseball players, like you had someone like Betts who had a resurgence, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of players who were like, wow, that player was really good on top of the hobby. Like, if you wait, you probably can get that card at a better price.
Yep. No doubt. And I think you're going to see, I'm going to, again, it's just a prediction. I don't know, I don't know anything, just from years of experience for the 2 cent stats worth. I think, like you said, I think we're going to see stuff kind of come back to normal, kind of come back down, settle in probably where realistically it should be. And I don't see a crash, but who knows, right? And but there's no way they can sustain this pace for the long haul. And
no, people will get turned off. People eventually get turned off, because just like we said with the kids, the adults will get priced out. And I see people online complaining like, geez, I can't go to a store and get cards. And part of me sitting back and watching, be like, well, I know that you enjoy collecting, but if it's something you're getting upset over, like where's the rest of our life priorities, right? Like, I know it's frustrating, but like there's bigger things, and like you can't go pick up a $20 box of cards because you're seeing everyone else opening it. You want them. Okay, great. But come on, like there's other things that we enjoy doing, even though I know collecting is great, right? When do you get to the point of just saying like, you know what, that's what it is. I'm going to go do something. Like, I'm not even going to think about it. Like, eventually I'll get someone. If I don't, like, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Well, there's other things to do. There's you can pivot. Hey, I'll just buy some singles. So I don't, it stinks. I don't get to open the packs. I get it, but there's other ways. Probably smarter, I mean, I've always said this I open a lot less wax now of being older than I did when I was younger. Generally, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I think we both know it's probably the most fun you can have is the process of ripping a box open, ripping a pack open. But then most of the time when that dust settles and you look at what actually come out of those packs, you're like, man, I'd probably do that one over, right? Yeah. Or I'd rather spend that money and buy the singles that I really want, or maybe I didn't pull in the box that I was chasing. And so if you can't get the box, like you said, pivot, go. You can stay in the hobby, just go in a different direction. There's multiple ways to enjoy this hobby. You just got to find it. I get the frustration, but like you said, if that's all you're hung up on and you can't get over it, you got to really reevaluate where you are in your space. Sir. And maybe the hobby. I always say if you're hobby and angry, you got to really look at what you're doing. Maybe it's not. I don't want anyone to leave. I'm a welcoming guy. But the hobby's not to get you upset or give you heartburn or angina or anything like that.
It's a hobby to be enjoyed.
Yeah, and so if you're at that point, like you said, you got to really do some introspection there and figure out what you really want to do. And it is what it is. I see certain people, like you said, social media, just if they're not complaining, they're not tweeting anything or posting anything. It's like, teach their own, But if I ever, I don't foresee that, but if I ever got to that point, I know it's time to exit stage left.
A little tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. So, but Nick, I want to thank you for spending some time with us and giving your insight. I appreciate it. I love your stuff and what you're doing. As I always do, I give our guests the final word, give out where people can hear baseball happens, read your stuff, get your content, take your time, give all that information out there.
John, thank you again for having me. I love what you're doing, and this was great. Always great to talk to a fellow New Yorker.
Yes.
We got to stick together because it's rough out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so if you want to follow me, I'm at Examine Baseball, literally on every platform. So that's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Right? You can find me there. My podcast is the Baseball Happenings Podcast, and again, we're syndicated everywhere you can find podcasts. You search the Baseball Happenings Podcast. I also do put the episodes up on YouTube under the Examine Baseball channel. I run a column with Forbes Sports Money. So, again, that's linked basically on all my sites as well. My own website is baseballhappenings.net. That's where I house a little more of my personal writings or stuff that doesn't exactly fit, with my Forbes column. So, that's where people get a hold of me, reach out. I love connecting with listeners and, followers, and I'm probably online a little more than I should be. But again, I think that's a function of, us being from home and working and teaching from home, right? There's another tab open and everything's there. So I'm more than willing to interact. I love the people that I've met in the hobby. I think there's some great people I've met over, I can't believe, almost the last decade of being on Twitter. And I've only been on hobby Twitter maybe for the last 5-6 years when I started getting involved with Topps and reviewing their products. But the kind of people you meet, there's a lot of great people in the hobby. And, you and I growing up, you met some charlatans growing up, but there was always some people that, were willing to help. And I find it's more of the latter. There's more great people willing to help. And I hope the people that are listening to the show and listening to your show, really dig into the guests you have, because I think, you found the people in the hobby that, are about, the good things of it and don't really represent that kind of shady side that tends to get over publicized at times. So thanks again, I really enjoyed being here.
Oh, thanks for coming on, Nick. And you make a great point. For that one negative Nancy, if you will, there's 20 great people that are great advocates and ambassadors of the hobby. And like you said, I try to bring them on. That's why you're here. And thanks for coming on.
I know the chunky that left these chunkies. Newman! Open the door, Newman. I know you're in there.
Sports Card Nation. All right, it's time for Newman's Rambling, where I select one question I get each week and answer it on the air.
John, you seem like an astute man.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
Maybe you can help explain something to me.
Well, I'll give it my best shot. All right, our question this week comes from Zach's Cards off of Twitter. Pretty good question. I like stuff sometimes that pertains, the non-cards that pertain to the podcast. That's what this question is. And Zach basically asked me, what's the hardest part of doing the podcast? And it's funny, I'm going to probably be a little more long-winded with this. I'm going to try not to be. If you asked me that question at different times during the podcast history, you'd get different answers. So, for example, if you would have asked that question when I first started doing the podcast, in the first, maybe 40 episodes, it was, the answer to that would be, getting guests to come on the show. Not that it was extremely hard, but, had to chase a little bit more. Let's just put it that way. But I'll answer that question obviously in current times. And so the answer to that, and I enjoy the feedback and all the PMs and direct messages and emails I get. I ask for that feedback. I ask for that interaction. So please do not take what I'm about to say as complaining. It's 0% complaining. But I'm really starting to get a lot of that stuff. A lot, some emails, a few emails, a lot of DMs and PMs with people asking me opinions on things. And I'm flattered that you value my opinion so much to ask me. And I want you to know I answer each and every one of those type of messages. I don't leave anyone hanging. I try to get to them as fast as I can and as promptly as I can. But I would probably say that's sometimes the more difficult because I try to answer them right away and as much as possible. So I'm grabbing my phone and responding. It might be during work or home, after I'm home from work, and I trying to balance my time. So that's become I don't want to say difficult. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but it's become a little cumbersome, if you will. But that being said, I love that stuff. I appreciate it, and the fact that you think of me enough to value my opinion or ask for my feedback or give your feedback to me doesn't go lost on me. So please, by all means, keep that up. If and my door is always open. It's just I guess at that stage that might be I don't even want to say difficult, but something that I deal with that is probably at an all-time high in the show's history, and I guess that's a good thing too. So I'm not really complaining. One of One Card Shop offers a tremendous breaking experience, great customer service, and they're constantly pulling fire. Steve and his family take care of you like one of their own and treat you right. Anyone can break, but no one treats you like One of One. Come check them out on Instagram at one_of_one_card_shop. For all the hot breaks, get a gold mailer headed your way. All right, that's going to do it for episode 119 of the Sports Card Nation podcast. First off, as always, thank you. Without you, we don't exist. I want to thank everyone again that followed us over to the new platform. I want to thank those of you that may have added this to your rotation of podcasts you listen to, discovering it on the new platform. I want to thank my guest, Nick Diunte, great guy doing great things, great writer for Forbes, passionate baseball guy, passionate guy just across the board, and definitely going to have him back on again. We didn't get to everything either, and so I love those conversations, honestly, where we don't get to everything, because it just means we were so into what we were discussing, and gives us a reason to always do it again sometime down the line. So I want to thank him. A couple shameless plugs before we go. As always, Hobby Hotline every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, various hosts. And think about this show. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've had Dr. Beckett, Brian Gary, Tracy Hackler, Chris Carlin, murderer's row of almost CEOs there. And so, how many shows can bring you that in consecutive week order? Not many. Great bunch of guys and hosts, and maybe some new folks soon coming down the line. Another shameless plug: if you like sports, me and my son Jordan started a podcast called Hello Newman Sports Podcast. We're on episode 5, having fun with my son doing that, talking sports. We don't always agree across the board, so we'll debate on that show and have a little fun at each other's expense. And so it's fun to get to do a show sort of tongue-in-cheek with my son, and I know he's having a good time with it, getting some experience under his belt. His first ever real full-time podcast, and again, we're just starting out, but we're having fun. We're having fun with it, kind of trying to grow it organically. So we'd love any fun, just search out for Hello Newman Sports Podcast. Follow us, like, subscribe, listen to the show, let us know what you think. So again, thank you out there. I hope everyone is doing well. I think we're seeing some progress when it comes to the pandemic and where we're at. Sporting events are talking about starting to let more people in to attendance, and I'm looking forward to that as someone who goes to Mets and Steeler games. Hoping that comes back sooner than later. I think we need it. We talked about some of the recent shows, the National, and, whether it would take place, be moved, that sort of thing. And looking forward to attending it, really, almost no matter where it is. But, I hope we get to have it. We're seeing shows take place, so it's probably not going to get canceled. We'll just have to see where it winds up. Maybe it gets moved. Maybe the dates get moved. But I think we'll have the National. So hope everyone is doing well. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next week. But before we go, we'll see you on the flip side. And always remember, the hobby is the people.